Welcome back, my friend. I'm so happy you're here. Today I want to take you on a journey through time to discover the fascinating history of the hamburger. Our story begins far from America, far from any burger joint, on the vast grassy plains of Asia over 800 years ago. Imagine the Mongol warriors of the 13th century. These were tough men who spent days on horseback riding across endless lands. They needed food that could travel with them, food that wouldn't spoil, food they could eat without ever dismounting from their horses. Their solution was strange but clever. They would take scraps of meat, usually lamb or mutton, and place them under their horse saddles. As they rode all day, the pressure and constant rubbing would tenderize the meat, pounding it into a soft paste. It sounds odd to us, but it worked. This was the world's first version of a shredded meat patty. It wasn't pretty, but it was practical, and for hungry warriors on the move, it was a lifesaver. When these Mongol armies swept across Asia and into Russia, they brought this food with them. The Russians, who had a more refined way of eating, took the idea and improved it. They began chopping the raw meat more finely and adding onions, eggs, and spices to enhance the flavor. They called this dish steak tartar, named after the Tatars, as the Mongols were often called in Europe. Steak tartar became a dish for the wealthy, for those who could afford good, clean beef, and it was eaten raw as a delicacy. Now the story moves to Germany, specifically to the busy port city of Hamburg. In the 1700s and 1800s, Hamburg was a major gateway to the world, bustling with sailors, traders, and travelers. German sailors and traders traveled to Russia, tasted this raw chopped beef, and brought the idea back home. The Germans, being a culture that loved their meats and sausages, embraced this dish completely. They made their own version, mixing the raw minced beef with local ingredients like grated onion and capers, and they called it Hamburg steak. In the taverns of Hamburg, sailors would sit down to plates of this raw, seasoned beef before embarking on long voyages. It was a taste of home for them, a familiar and satisfying meal that reminded them of their homeland. But how did this raw meat dish from a German port become the cooked sandwich we know and love today? The answer lies in a massive wave of human migration that changed the world. Throughout the 1800s, millions of Germans left their homeland to seek a new life in America. They packed their dreams, their hopes, their few belongings, and of course, their recipes. When they arrived in cities like Chicago, Cincinnati, and St. Louis, they opened restaurants and food carts serving their beloved Hamburg steak. But in America, things were different. The meat wasn't always as fresh or as safe as it was back home in Germany. People grew worried about eating raw beef, fearing it could make them sick. So cooks started doing something simple and practical. They began cooking the Hamburg steak on a hot griddle, searing it on both sides until it was no longer raw but a cooked patty of ground beef. This cooked Hamburg steak was usually served on a plate with potatoes and vegetables, just like any other piece of meat. It was cheap, filling, and perfect for America's growing army of factory workers who needed hearty meals to fuel their long shifts. It became a popular lunch item in diners and lunch counters, often selling for just a few cents. So who really invented it? The truth is, it was likely an idea whose time had come. America in the late 1800s was changing rapidly. Cities were growing crowded with workers. People needed fast, cheap food they could eat on the go. In different towns, in different states, different people were having the exact same thought at the same time. Take that familiar Hamburg steak, cook it for safety, and put it between two slices of bread for convenience. It was a perfect solution for a new, modern world. After its debut at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, the hamburger was here to stay. People from all over the country had tasted it and loved it. They went home to their own towns and asked restaurant owners for one of those hamburger sandwiches. The seed had been planted, and the hamburger began spreading across America. The next big step in our journey happened in 1891 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A man named Oscar Weber Bilby thought that regular bread was good for holding a hamburger, but it could be better. He wanted something softer and sweeter to cradle the savory beef and soak up its delicious juices. So he did something truly revolutionary. He baked his own yeast buns using his wife's treasured family recipe. These were soft, fluffy, slightly sweet buns that held the meat perfectly and made the whole eating experience more enjoyable. This was the first known use of a true hamburger bun, and it was a game changer that improved the hamburger immensely. In the early 1920s, a new word was entering the American vocabulary: barbecue. A man in Athens, Texas, the same town as Old Dave, named Jesse P., a merchant, thought he would combine this new barbecue craze with the popular hamburger. He opened a small stand and started selling hamburgers with a twist. He would grill his patties and then serve them on a bun with crisp lettuce, juicy tomato, and his own special sauce. He called it a barbecue hamburger. It was a huge hit, and the idea of adding fresh, crunchy toppings to the burger began to spread to other restaurants and lunch counters. But the single most important moment in the history of the hamburger was yet to come. It happened in 1921 in Wichita, Kansas. A shrewd businessman named J. Walter Anderson had a vision that would change the world of food forever. He noticed that hamburgers were popular, but they were sold in all kinds of places: lunch counters, diners, fairgrounds, food carts, each with a different price, different quality, and different taste. There was no consistency. He wanted to create a place that was clean, fast, and offered a consistent, high-quality product every single time. He wanted to standardize the hamburger. Anderson opened a small food stand. It was tiny, just 18 feet wide. But it was designed for speed and efficiency from the ground up. The menu was beautifully simple: hamburgers, coffee, and pie. His hamburger was a 5-cent patty served on a bun with pickles, onions, and a special sauce. He called his stand the Wichita. It was an instant success. People loved the quick service and the delicious, consistent taste. Anderson eventually partnered with a man named Edgar Waldo Billy Ingram, and together they formed a company to franchise the idea. They needed a new, catchy name that would appeal to customers. They decided to call it White Castle. The name was chosen very carefully. White suggested cleanliness and purity, a stark contrast to the often greasy and dirty diners of the time. Castle suggested strength, stability, and permanence. Their restaurants were small, white, enamel-coated buildings that looked like little fortresses of food safety. White Castle was a revolution in the restaurant industry. They created a streamlined system for making hamburgers that was like an assembly line. Everything was done the same way, every single time, at every single location. The patties were small and square, and they had 5 little holes punched in them. These holes weren't just for show. They allowed the patties to cook all the way through quickly and evenly on the grill, which was a key selling point in a time when people were still wary of ground beef and worried about food safety. They sold their hamburgers in bags of 5, calling them sliders, for a total of 25 cents, a bargain even then. White Castle didn't just sell hamburgers. They sold the very idea of the hamburger as a safe, respectable food. They ran clever advertising campaigns to convince a skeptical public that their hamburgers were not only delicious but also clean and wholesome. They even had a comic strip featuring their mascot, a cheerful woman named Julia Joy, who would take readers on virtual tours of their spotless kitchens, showing them exactly how the food was prepared. Because of White Castle's efforts, the hamburger was no longer just a cheap snack for the working class. It was becoming a respectable, craveable meal that everyone could enjoy without worry. White Castle's success proved that there was a massive, untapped market for a quick, cheap, and consistent hamburger. It was the blueprint for everything that came after. It paved the way for the golden age of the hamburger. In the 1920s and 1930s, drive-in restaurants began to pop up all over the country, especially in sunny California. This was the era of the automobile, and teenagers and families loved the novelty and freedom of it all. They would pull their cars into a parking spot, and a car hop on roller skates would come to take their order. They would eat their burgers and fries right in their car, listening to music on the radio. It was the height of cool, a symbol of modern American life. Places like Bob's Big Boy and Pig Stand became famous for their burgers and their unique, car-centric culture. The hamburger was now firmly linked to the freedom and fun of the open road. Then in 1940, in the city of San Bernardino, California, two brothers named Richard and Maurice McDonald opened a small drive-in restaurant. They called it McDonald's. For the first few years, it operated like any other drive-in, with a large menu that included barbecued ribs, hot dogs, and several other items alongside their hamburgers. But the McDonald brothers were smart businessmen who paid close attention to their sales. They noticed something surprising. The vast majority of their profits, nearly 90%, came from just a few items, especially their hamburgers. In 1948, they made a radical decision that would change the world. They closed their successful drive-in for several months and reopened it with a completely new concept. They got rid of the car hops. They got rid of the plates, silverware, and glass dishes. They simplified their menu to just 9 items, focusing almost entirely on their famous 15-cent hamburger. Then they did something truly innovative. They redesigned their kitchen to work like an automobile assembly line, with each employee specializing in one single task. One person toasted the buns. One person added the ketchup, mustard, and onions. One person grilled the patties. One person wrapped the finished burgers. They called it the Speedy Service System. It was a massive, immediate success. The new system was faster, more efficient, and cheaper than anything that had come before. Customers could get their food in seconds instead of minutes. People flocked to it in droves. The McDonald brothers had perfected the fast food model. Their little burger stand became famous throughout California, and they began to franchise it, opening a few other locations. But the real transformation of McDonald's, and with it the entire hamburger world, came in 1954 with a man named Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc was a 52-year-old salesman who sold a machine called the multi-mixer, which could make 5 milkshakes at once. He was intrigued when he received an order for 8 of his multi-mixers from a single small restaurant in San Bernardino, California. He couldn't believe any place needed to make 40 milkshakes at the same time. His curiosity got the better of him, so he drove out to California to see it for himself. He stood in the parking lot of that little McDonald's restaurant and watched in amazement as crowds of people lined up for the simple, perfect hamburgers. He saw the incredible efficiency of the Speedy Service System in action. He had a vision right there in that parking lot, a vision of this same restaurant, this same system, replicated not just a few times, but hundreds, thousands of times across the country. He saw the future of food. He convinced the McDonald brothers to let him become their national franchise agent. Ray Kroc was a visionary and a relentless, driven businessman. He opened his first McDonald's in Des Plaines, Illinois, in 1955. While the McDonald brothers were happy with their few successful restaurants in California, Kroc dreamed of a national empire. He pushed for rapid, aggressive expansion. He bought up land and leased it to his franchisees to ensure quality control. He built a system so precise, so regimented, so detailed, that a hamburger bought in New York tasted exactly the same as a hamburger bought in Los Angeles. The McDonald's Corporation, under Ray Kroc, didn't just sell hamburgers. They sold a complete, predictable experience. You always knew exactly what you were getting. The Golden Arches became one of the most recognized symbols in the world, a symbol of America itself, a symbol of post-war prosperity, convenience, and uniformity. As America's cultural and economic influence grew around the world in the latter half of the 20th century, McDonald's went with it. They opened restaurants in Canada, then Japan, then Europe, and eventually, in countries all over the globe. They took the hamburger and made it a worldwide phenomenon, a food recognized and enjoyed on every continent. McDonald's success also sparked the rapid rise of other national chains, each with its own unique spin on the hamburger. Burger King offered a have-it-your-way, a flame-grilled burger. Wendy's, founded by a former KFC cook named Dave Thomas in 1969, introduced the square patty that stuck out from the bun and the old-fashioned hamburger made with fresh, never-frozen beef. The fast food hamburger wars had begun, and the intense competition only made the burgers better and more varied for customers. But the story of the hamburger isn't just about the big corporations and their national chains. Throughout the 20th century and into the 21st, the hamburger has continued to evolve in exciting new directions. It became a canvas for culinary creativity and personal expression. In the 1980s and 1990s, we saw the rise of the gourmet burger. Restaurants began using higher quality beef, like Angus or Wagyu, known for its rich flavor and tenderness. They experimented with different types of buns, from buttery brioche to chewy pretzel rolls. They piled on incredible, creative toppings, sweet caramelized onions, earthy sautéed mushrooms, crispy bacon, fresh avocado, different cheeses like tangy blue cheese or creamy brie, and a dizzying array of signature sauces. The burger had moved from a simple, fast meal to a dish that could be found on the menus of the finest restaurants in the world. Today, the hamburger is truly everywhere. You can get a simple slider at a gas station convenience store. You can get a double-double animal style at In-N-Out Burger, a regional chain with a cult following. You can get a plant-based Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger that tastes remarkably like real meat, appealing to vegetarians and meat eaters alike. You can get a Kobe beef burger topped with foie gras and truffles at a high-end steakhouse for $50. It is a food that has transcended its humble origins to become a universal staple. Think back to the beginning of our long journey. From a raw lump of meat tenderized under a Mongol warrior's saddle, to a seasoned raw steak in a German port tavern, to a cooked patty in a busy American lunch wagon, to a perfectly standardized icon of global fast food, and finally, to a gourmet delicacy crafted by skilled chefs. The hamburger's history is really our history. It's a story of migration, of people moving across continents and bringing their food traditions with them. It's a story of the great melting pot of cultures that is America, where immigrant recipes were adapted and transformed into something new. It's a story of innovation, of finding a better, faster, more convenient way to do things. It's a story of entrepreneurship, of people like Charlie Green, J.O. Walter Anderson, the McDonald brothers, and Ray Kroc, who saw an opportunity and seized it with both hands. And above all, it's a story of pure, simple, delicious pleasure. So the next time you pick up a warm, juicy hamburger, whether it's from a backyard grill at a family barbecue, a classic diner with red vinyl booths, or a world-famous fast food chain with golden arches, take a moment to appreciate it. You're not just holding a sandwich. You're holding a piece of history that spans centuries and continents. You're holding the combined efforts and ideas of countless people across time, from Mongol warriors to German immigrants to American businessmen, all of whom contributed to that perfect moment of taste in your hands. It is a simple thing, but simple things, done right, can bring a lot of happiness. It is, and will always be, a truly remarkable creation. Now go and enjoy a hamburger. You've earned it after this long journey through time.